Hey everyone, welcome back to Tactical Magic. This is Molly Mandelberg, your host, and we have I think, juicy episode for you here today. I know many of you out there listening are either an entrepreneur or you're side hustling and becoming an entrepreneur, or you're just being a human in a body in a world full of other humans. And I think that what we're going to talk about today is really useful and relatable, whether you're in a partnership or not. We're going to be talking about relationships, and we're going to be talking about them through the lens of romantic relationships. But I think a lot of what we're probably going to touch on is about connecting to other people, and that can be used in any area of your life, with your family, with your professional contacts, your clients, everywhere you're looking at relating to other people. I think these tools will be relevant. So I have an expert on the line with me here today, Jess Bushnell. Hang tight for just a sec and I will let you know more about her.
It's not just about mastering technology. It's not just about brand or messaging. It's not just about making more money. It's about showing up in a big way so your people can find you. This is about bringing your most wild and authentic self into the hustle and grind. Welcome to Tactical Magic, a business strategies podcast for the warrior goddess entrepreneur.
Awesome. So Jess Bushnell is a relationship coach and multidimensional traveler disguised as a soccer mom. She helps individuals in committed relationships take their partnership or marriage to the next level. She makes deep, energetic, and mindset shifting work relatable and fun as she helps folks heal and transform one of the most important relationships of their lives, their long-term partnerships. Welcome to the show, Jess.
Thank you so much, Molly. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm so happy to have you here. So one of the things I like to ask at the beginning of these episodes, because there are a lot of people out there looking to get inspired to follow their dream and walk the path that they're being called towards, is how did you kind of find your way into doing the work that you're doing now?
Yeah, it's a great question. It was kind of a strange experience that I had, which is contrary to how I guide and teach people to follow their intuition. So I'll tell you in a second. One thing I want to say about intuition was when I was a little kid, I used to think that I would know the voice of my intuition because I had the image of like when we were kids, when they would show like what God was on the cartoon. It was like an old white man, like in the sky, like in a toga.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it like my intuition would be like him, like yelling down to me, and I would just know for certain. And it wasn't until I became like a young adult that I was like, oh my God, my intuition is like the quietest voice and it has this resonance. So I started following that and deepening that for like 25 years. And I've just developed this really intimate relationship with that voice. So that being said, usually that's how my intuition speaks. But the way that I became a coach was, let's see, my kids are now 10 and 8 years old. And I want to say it was like 2021, like right when COVID happened. I had been trying to figure out what I wanted to do because I had been a stay-at-home mom for all those years. And I really wanted to get into meaningful work that had something to do with relationships and with people and with working one-on-one with people. So my first thought was, okay, I'm going to become a therapist. That's like a well-worn path. People know what the word is. And friends was like, Jess, you should become a coach. And that like scared the crap out of me because it wasn't something that has been established as much and it wasn't as quote unquote safe. So I just kind of put it to the side. But there was this podcast called the Life Coach School podcast that I've been listening to for like 8 years, off and on. And I was walking my dog, and I remember exactly where I was. I remember like where the sun was, and I was listening to this podcast talking about how to become a life coach, which they've talked about before for, off and on for 8 years. And they said something, and I had some thought. It went so fast I can't even really remember, but I think the thought was I'm supposed to be a life coach. And all of a sudden I had this feeling where it felt like my whole body felt like it was going down a roller coaster. And I started saying, oh fuck, oh fuck, oh fuck, like I was giving birth to myself. And I've had some very strange experiences in my life sober, and that still is one of the strangest that I've ever had. And I'm walking my dog saying, oh, fuck, and like crossing the street and then just kind of trying to integrate whatever was going on. And then like I get back in the car and what happens with me when something happens is my energy goes full throttle towards the thing. And so then I just couldn't stop thinking about it and like took my kids home. My husband was in the shower. I opened the door. I'm like, I think I'm supposed to be a life coach. It's like, okay, great. Let me like finish and I'll talk to you about it when I get out. And so that was 2021. It's 2024 now. And then I had a health issue that I wanted to closure, like come to a closure before I jumped in. So then 2022, I started my certification and I've just been like booking it ever since.
Love that. I mean, just having followed you for not a whole long time, but seeing the content that you're putting out, seeing the like clarity, the resonance, the just knowing that you can help people and how effortlessly it seems that you're broadcasting that message out to the world because you have, decades of experience, or at least many years of experience cultivating the tools that you're now teaching. And I think that's something really important I want to highlight for anyone out there who's listening is you may only have a certain number of years since you've been certified in something or since you've been telling the world that you do something, but it's likely that many more years than that of your life you've been in training to do this work, that you've been focusing and learning and harnessing the awareness and the skill set to be doing what you do well. And so I think that that is something worth claiming. So saying that you're in a relationship niche, that you help couples have more beautiful relationships, will you tell us a little bit about the partnership that you have with your person and
Yeah.
how that has sort of informed the work that you're doing?
Yeah, for sure. And I also want to speak to what you just said about an entrepreneur, being an entrepreneur who is in this niche. It took me a while to claim this niche. And I think that's kind of an interesting thing because I feel like I was born to be a relationship coach, but it took me a while to really stand in my power and say, hey, I can help you with this. And so I think I want to really encourage anyone who's just starting off on this path to like experiment and like follow those little flutters because all the flutters that I followed really helped strengthen my confidence and my resolve that, oh my God, this is 100% where I'm supposed to be, even though it didn't look quote unquote like the relationship sector at the time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just saying that. But so my husband and I, we've been together for 20 years. And I think one thing that I think is really interesting about like our journey was about 5 years into our partnership, we broke up for a day, and it was the best thing that ever happened to us. It like woke us up. We had been like when we first got together, it was like the easiest thing that we had ever, I can't speak for him, but for me, it was the easiest thing I'd ever done. It was just easy to be myself around him. He inspired me unlike anybody else I'd ever met. He still does, even 20 years later. And then like 3 years into our partnership, I think I just really started taking for granted all of the magic that we both bring. And I actually accidentally joined a spiritual cult. And so I was like in that quote unquote game for like 2 years. And I was just bringing home so much crappy energy every day, over and over and over. And then basically just like putting it on him. And at the time, we were like early 20s. He didn't know how to communicate to me his own boundaries. And I didn't know how to really see what I was projecting. And so he just said out of nowhere, I want to break up. And it literally was like someone stabbed a knife in my heart. And I like took a full 24 hours. I actually called my mom crying, like asking if I could come live with her and my dad. And she was like, Jesse, she gave me a bunch of advice. And one of them was, you really need to find what made you guys fall in love together in the first place. Find what you enjoy about each other again. And so luckily my partner, him and I both really value the things that my mom drops these wisdom bombs. And that was like one of those times. And so I came back and I was like, look, we've been together for 5 years. I do not want to be with anyone who doesn't want to be with me. And here's some really cool shit that my mom said. I just want to like get it all out on the table, whether it's for us continuing forward together or if it's just for our own learning where we go off on our separate ways. And so we just had this night where I remember us on the back porch, like even into the evening. It was like the most real, most hard, but also such a calming, grounded conversation that I'd ever had with somebody. And I don't remember the point where we were like, okay, we're going to give this a shot. But basically, we were like, okay, here's my stuff, here's your stuff. Basically, like, let's give it a shot. And then we actually went away that weekend to one of our favorite spots and like, kind of re glued that enjoyment and that love back together kind of on this new level. And it was basically like we went through this energetic process using our words and being in a whole new energy because that really shook us up. And we were able to bump up to this new level. We like renegotiated our contracts without saying, hey, let's renegotiate our contract. And he said to me after that, he was like, if we can get through that, we can get through anything. And then 15 years down the road, we've met up against challenge after challenge. And that continues to be sort of like our template. This is something I really believe in strongly for letting yourself and the relationship die and be reborn over and over and over again. Like I'm not ever trying to get someone back to what the relationship was like in like the very beginning stages because you're not meant to go back. You're meant to use these as springboards going forward. And so that is, I think that really helps to cultivate this grounded sense of interdependence instead of, I feel like we're really moving away from this paradigm of codependence.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
absolutely. I love that. And I love that the emphasis is on being in a partnership where nobody is required to stay who they are, where both people are inspired and allowed and free to continue to discover who they want to be and
Yeah.
have support to step into that. Where it's, I forget, there was some story or post or something I read years ago that was some old man talking about why his marriage worked. And it was that they were willing to meet each other every day as if they were a new person and keep discovering who the person in front of them was, which is like such a huge gift to not only give space for that, but also to be met by someone who's willing to keep discovering more of who you are today rather than expecting you to be who you were 5 months ago, 6 months ago, 6 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
That constant exploration and that willingness to not only hold space for someone changing, but help unpack it with them as like this collaborative discovery process of exploring who each other are and pulling more of that like deep truth out of each other. That's like the biggest gift that one can have, I think, in a committed partnership or in a relationship in general, is the permission to go and be and discover who you are, and also the safe space to unpack that with somebody else.
Yeah. And I want to say it's like, it's incredibly scary too, to like really truly embody that. I think it's imperative. And I also think like my partner taught me how to do this. Like that's why I do one-to-one coaching. Some people are like, oh no, don't both people have to have that belief to start? And it's like, no, no. One person gets to have this aha moment, cultivate it, and then bring that new version of themselves back. And I mean, I remember even before I started coaching, him and I sitting on the couch and I was just in tears crying, knowing I was on the precipice of something really big. And even though I knew in my heart, his main objective is to support me following my heart. And that's my main for him too, even if it's away from each other. And I just had to verbalize it and say it out loud. And I remember my voice being really shaky, but I just had to say, what if I grow away from you? And he like, I just want to cry just thinking about it. He had so much love in his eyes and his eyes, had tears in them. And he's like, if that happens, I will fully support you. And it's just like continuing to reaffirm this belief that we hold really dear. It's ironic because it's like giving someone the freedom to evolve away from you, ironically makes you closer. Well,
Yeah.
I can't promise that obviously, but like a lot of the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that's what we want, is we want the spaciousness and also the support and the witnessing and somebody to carry the torch with us when we need the backup, but not to put parameters around how that can evolve or who we can become. That's really beautiful. I'm grateful to hear that you share that story for sure. So I'm wondering, many of the people, like you said, you're mostly working with people who are in committed relationships, and you're often working with an individual, not with the couple. What are the things that people generally are dealing with or experiencing when they come to work with you in that capacity?
Mostly it is, okay, I'm going to say I've created 3 pillars in my program to speak to the things that people bring. The first one is autonomy. The second one is communication. And the third one is embodiment. So just taking that to kind of riff off of, communication is like such a big one, and people talk about that a lot. One of the things I don't like from my perception of the codependent paradigm is quote unquote teaching people the quote right thing to say to quote get your partner to stay with you. Like I want to throw up even just saying that out loud. Like that's not the purpose in trying to evolve with your partner. Like the purpose in trying to evolve with your partner isn't actually to like keep them ball and chain to you. So learning how to communicate honestly, it's such a big one for people. And it sounds really simple, but I mean, I know from my own experience in holding space for clients, like there's a lot of nervous system stuff that comes up, and being able to hold the energy of uncomfortable emotions and still speak, even if your voice is shaky, like sharing that. And then also being able to hold a boundary is is huge. And so it's almost like learning how to be open and say what you need, and then also learning how to be like consciously closed and how to root into like where your partner ends and where you begin is really huge. And then the autonomy piece, kind of like when I was saying, I work with individuals, the way that I see a partnership is like a dance. And so I think that when people come to work with me, sometimes they're just kind of scared to embody what it is that they actually want out of the relationship. And so really giving people a space and giving them tools on how to really sink into themselves. I call it sacred selfishness, like really take time for themselves with meditation, journaling. I give curated meditations to folks, even with like a 10-minute walk to move the energy, to move stale energy through, is it helps give an anchor for what the person really wants to create. And like this piece of what do you actually want is kind of in this autonomy part. And then the last piece is embodiment. So trying on a new thought can be helpful, but I've found it to be even more helpful to really step into a new energetic orbit. So I do these things called timeline jumps. And so those help people really embody the next version of themselves that they really want to bring to the relationship and then kind of practice that going forward. I think I went off on a tangent. I'm not sure if that totally answered your question.
Yeah, I think that, yeah, the things that people are coming with is often a lack of boundaries or a lack of clarity around how to communicate with their partner effectively, or to build communication patterns that can support them to have those hard moments, or to, build upon the good moments. I feel like boundaries is a word that's just kind of thrown around a lot. Can you give us more examples of what not having boundaries or having boundaries can look like in a relationship?
Yeah. Okay. The easiest formula that I love that I use with my partner, with my kids, with my parents, with my friends, with anything is, and it sounds kind of harsh on the onset, so we can play with it for a second. But if you don't blank, then I will blank. So for example, boundaries are always about me and what I'm going to do with my human meat suit if somebody doesn't do something. So if you don't stop yelling, like it's like I'm giving the news. If you don't stop yelling, I'm going to get up and I'm going to leave the table. Like I do this with my kids. So instead of me saying, you shouldn't be yelling, that's me now jumping into their autonomy. I'm saying, this is what I'm going to do if you continue to do that.
Mhm.
So then, of course, there's a lot of other ways that that can look, but I just love that like simple formula because it just reflects back to me, oh, am I trying to manipulate this person, or am I just holding space for what I know to be healthy for myself in this moment? And then making sure to communicate it so that they know what's going on with me,
Rather
basically.
than just failing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or staying put and getting frustrated and it causing harm.
Well, and then there's another thing too called a boundary request that I think is really great, which sometimes people get that mistaken with boundaries, which is like if I ask my husband to take out the trash, that's a like, well, would that be a boundary request? Like if I ask him to do something because I want support somewhere, that's me requesting something of him, knowing full well he actually doesn't have to do it.
Yeah.
But then we'll ask our partner to do something like, hey, can you feed the chickens? Can you take out the trash? Can you pick up the kids from school? And then they say no. And then all of a sudden my whole world spins out of control because they said no to me. Then it's like, okay, that's where you gotta like, that's where emotional alchemy comes in, where you're really processing your own feelings, what's going on with me, and trying to there's like this taking apart this unmeshment kind of a thing. So I feel like I got a little abstract there, but I wanted to highlight that there's kind of two different ways to play with this idea of boundaries.
Yeah. And I mean, to asking somebody to take out the trash and they say no, that's a boundary request that they also are allowed to, affirm or deny. Is there a way of adding to that request so that they know it's coming from a place of I need support right now?
Okay, the way that I do it is before I ask something of my husband that I know he may say yes or no to, I have a lot of experience coming from that needy place of, I need you to do this for me. And then my energy is hanging on in this codependent way. And then being able to move now into the interdependent paradigm, I always like consciously, even though I believe in it, I still consciously practice grounding my energy in. If he doesn't take out the trash, I'm totally fine with doing it.
Mhm.
whatever request I make of him, I always make sure my energy is aligned in if he says no, I 100% give him the freedom to say no.
Mhm.
So number one, I do that. That goes back to the autonomy piece, right? Like grounding in your own autonomy. And then number two, I'll share with him like if maybe he's taxed or if I feel the need to share where I'm coming from, I'll then share like my story, like, hey, I've got all this stuff going on. Can you take out the trash? And so grounding to the autonomy energy first before saying it, then I know for sure that I'm not coming from this kind of like
Neat.
graspy, needy
Yeah.
place. And then whatever he says, I am so much more able, like I have the ability to accept whatever he says.
Yeah, because you're coming from that place of I'm already aligned with and already am okay, yes or no. And then
Yeah.
you come to the request rather
Yeah.
than, I think that's also just like, even on something as simple as taking out the trash, taking that moment with yourself first is just adding more consciousness to any requests that you bring forward. It's just adding more self-awareness to what's coming up, which sometimes maybe you ask them to take out the trash because really you just need love right now. And that's the
Mhm.
way that you can find a way to request that they show up for you. And when you take that moment to check in with you first, maybe it's not even the trash that you need taken out. Maybe it's like, hey, can you hold me right now? Or,
Mhm.
hey, can we have a moment to just connect? Like, I think that self-awareness piece is so pivotal in how we interact and also how we react or respond to someone else in our life and in our energy. And I want to bring this back for just a minute to the conversation of boundaries, which we can have as professionals when we are serving clients, that sometimes there can be tendencies towards codependency that show up in our relationships with our clients too, of needing them or them needing you or creating that sort of need game with them. And that these same tools and skills, I think, can really come into play in how you respond to the requests of your clients or how you maybe overgive to make sure that they're feeling like they got their money's worth, or maybe where you lose boundaries around your days that you wanted to have off or hours that you shouldn't normally be available, that you're serving them anyway because you want to meet that need. That this conversation, I think, can be translated and transmuted into that one-on-one relationship client dynamic situation as well too. So I just wanted to point towards that. I know you do magical work. We're going to let people know where to follow you and check you out too. But will you tell us a little bit about the conscious partnership program? I know you kind of mentioned those three levels that you're working on already, but what does the container look like for people to come and work with you?
Yeah. So the container is a 3-month one-to-one coaching container where we do, let's see, we have weekly coaching sessions, and then the last coaching session of the month is a timeline jump. So you get 3 timeline jumps and then regular coaching sessions throughout. And then what I love is I have these concepts that really anyone can learn. I love having like tools that are like simple tools. And so I have these on videos and on documents that people can download and save for themselves to repeat down the road. But then also I teach folks in the container and then we apply them to their unique situation. So I love how individualized and unique it is to like the person's situation. And then I give homework, curated meditations, and encourage walking to move the energy. And then I'm also available throughout the whole container on a free voice messaging app. So, which I've found to be really pivotal in my own self growth and coaching, where when you run up into a sticky spot, I call them sticky spots in real time, you can get coaching on it between sessions, which I think deepens the quickening of the transformation that you're on.
Yeah, it's awesome. I will say too that I'm sure it's not just your partnership is failing or drowning that is,
Yeah,
an ideal time to get support like this. Like there is also probably situations where it's just become routine or it's just lost a little bit of its spark and you're wondering like, will it be like this forever or is there a
yeah.
next level for us?
That's totally it. And actually, I feel like I work best with people who aren't like on the brink of I am getting a divorce, or they're not at the very beginning. They're like in that middle part where yeah, you're like in the routine, it's become stale. Like maybe your thoughts are like, okay, this is just where we're at. And like you notice, wait a second. that inspiration has left, and like you're starting to feel like you're outgrowing something and stuff starting to feel tedious or a little bit scary, or you notice you're starting to get into these like, oh, I think a big sign is, are you running into the same blocks over and over? Are you having the same fights over and over? That's a great sign of, oh, it's time to refresh this relationship. And basically, I say like thriving, like getting to the spot where you're thriving and where you're evolving to the next level together.
Yeah. I also want to bring an example to one person can do some inquiry and work on something and it ripples out. I was talking to a colleague a few years ago and she mentioned she was noticing this like tension with her partner and she was focusing on all the things that weren't going right. And she made this game up with herself that every day she would write down on a little piece of paper one thing she just adored or appreciated about her partner. And that she was tucking it away. She was going to give them to him after a year of that. But just the practice of doing that, he didn't know it was even happening. And that she just made this little acknowledgement practice for herself about him. And it completely changed the connection that they had. It completely changed how she responded to him. It completely changed the energy he was meeting her with. It was like just one person having this secret practice exponentialize the connection in their partnership. So I just want to highlight that in. Yes, doing work with your partner is amazing and super valuable and important. And also, one person lifting themselves up and seeing themselves in their life and their relationship differently has a ripple effect. And this is absolutely true of the work I do with my clients as well. It's like when you choose to expand beyond something or heal something or transform something within you, it ripples out to everyone you're connected with, to your kids, to your partner, to your family, to your clients, to your like network of people, that there's a energetic temperature of suffering and thriving on the planet. And when you click up 1 degree, that changes the temperature on the planet and especially everyone connected to you. So I just want to highlight that in doing one-on-one work like this for a partner dynamic is also got to be really, really powerful.
I love that. I'm going to take that as inspiration. That's brilliant.
Yeah, it's awesome. Cool. So what's the best way for people to follow you or get a hold of you or check out that more info about that conscious partnership programming?
Yeah. So right now the best way is probably Instagram. I have two websites, but first Instagram is I'm at Jess Bushnell Coaching. Should I spell it or are you going to link it?
It will be linked in the show notes, but
Okay.
yeah, JessBushnell coaching.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the website that's being worked on that's going to become this like website home is just going to be jessbushnell.com, but that's not up yet. If you just want like a direct, like really quick to book a call with me website, it's jessbushnellcoaching.com. And then I am on Facebook as Jess Bushnell too.
Awesome. So you can go find her on there. We'll make sure to link that website and Instagram in the show notes. You've shared so much wisdom already. I know these episodes are really short. I feel like we could talk a lot more about this, but are there any more words of wisdom you want to leave people with?
One of my inspirations was my grandparents who always enjoyed each other. So I will say to y'all who are listening, the inscription I put on my husband's wedding ring, which is, may we enjoy each other. May you pattern enjoyment with your partner.
I love that. I had a really great example of soulmate grandparents as well, who were just
That's cool.
obsessed with each other forever. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and magic. I feel inspired and lit up. And yeah, just like not that there's no end to the work, but there's no end to the potential for greater that we can call into our lives. And that almost always starts right here with us. And that is empowering, not defeating in my eyes. So thank you for being a leader out in the world, helping people choose to walk these waters and do this work. And yeah, the gifts that can come through it are greater than we can imagine. So anyone out there who's listening, definitely go check out Jess. If you're in a partnership that could use an infusion of more thriving, get some support, get a consult, see what that's like. And whatever happens, keep asking big questions and taking bold action because you are here for a reason. We'll see you next time.